everyone, Guillaume here, host of the E-Commerce Wizards podcast, where I feature leaders in business and e-commerce. Today's guest is Robert Murray, CEO of Intrigue Media. He's a fellow agency owner and founder like myself. Today we'll be talking about strategy, positioning, and differentiation, especially from the point of view of an e-commerce merchant, but those topics are useful for any businesses at any time. We'll also cover another topic that if e-commerce is not part of your strategy, you may want to revisit that assumption. So before we get started, I have 2 points. First, a shout out to Sean Joel of elevationleaders.com who introduced us. So thank you, Sean. Otherwise, this episode would not happen today. And secondly, we have our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If a business wants a powerful e-commerce online store that will increase their sales, or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business processes to gain efficiency and reduce human processing errors, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's the catch. We're specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento e-commerce platform. We do everything Magento. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, training, support, new website, we got their back. Email our team, support@magemontreal.com, or go to magemontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. All right, so Robert, thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Guillaume.
Before we dive into the main topic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, Rob Murray, co-founder of Intrigue Media. We've been around. We just turned 15 years old, September of 2021. We started off as a digital out-of-home company. So we had flat screen, like LCDs in high traffic consumer environments. And then in 2008 and 2009, our clientele started asking us about how they could get to the top of Google and if we would help them with their website because their cousin had moved away or they're now no longer a student and they're now a full-time person with a job and they don't know their password and what's the deal with Facebook. So we got really kind of dragged into, online marketing, digital marketing. And so in 2000, it was like 2010 when it really started to kick off. And over the last 11 years has been, one of the big parts of our growth. We've been on Canada's fastest growing companies list 4 years in a row. We're a certified B Corp organization. And we've got a couple of niches and a team right now about 30 full-time, a couple subcontractors. And there's myself and Paul DeMarco as a co-founder.
Great. Well, congrats on those listings here for the fastest growing company. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's get started now. This strategy, positioning, differentiation for an e-commerce merchant. Like, this is a broad topic. What's top of mind for you?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. It's a really interesting conversation, and maybe I can give a specific example of a client use case that we had just gone through. It was an account that I had taken over. I wasn't part of it, and then maybe sometime we'll get to the recruiting aspect because there's that the great resignation era that we're in. So anyway, a couple of account managers had left our organization, and so I was responsible for making sure the relationship was standing and then essentially take over for a couple of months until we find other folks to take over and then they're good to go. But this one client sold refurbished laptops online, and I'm doing a little bit of investigation to try to figure out okay, what's this client all about? Doing some back history and looking at the site just to orient myself before the first session. And as we get into the first session, I find out they're not very happy. They actually don't even understand what customer acquisition cost is. So we weren't necessarily managing their account properly. And once we figured it out, it was quite high. They were actually essentially losing money on every purchase. So, we couldn't have even created more sales. If we did it at the same customer acquisition cost, we actually would have put a business. Yeah. Eating gross margin every single time we did it. And the frequency of purchase, 1. So their core customer was only buying once from them. The revenue model was all messed up. But that's essentially the second thing that we need to figure out once we figure out the strategy. And so I asked them at one point in the meeting, I said, why would I buy a refurbished laptop from you? And I said, well, I have a $50,000 budget to help get you sales, and I'm up against Jeff Bezos. This is a difficult proposition for me. I have no competitive advantage. How am I going to do this? And so we had a conversation over time, and we realized that they're actually really good at simplifying the purchase process. Because if you know what you want, you can go to any e-commerce platform and store and buy it. But if you don't know what you want, you just know that you need a computer, it can be a really difficult decision, especially if you're, say, somebody over the age of 60. And the people that are over the age of 60, there's a lot more of them buying laptops these days, or tablets, or whatever. And so we made a decision to differentiate by making them niched around making it easy for seniors to buy refurbished laptops for much less money. And then that proved to be really good for them because they can sell in Canada and the US. So the marketplace is actually massive. They became a lot more relevant to a smaller population. And because they addressed their core customer, they were able to essentially speak to the problems that those folks have and provide very specific solutions for those people. So instead of saying like, here's all the brands and the specs, it was like, what do you want it for? Are you looking for an internet browsing computer? Or are you looking for, a follow your grandkids computer? Are you looking for a Netflix computer? And so it changed the whole environment of purchase for the right customer. And then they started to see sales pick up and customer acquisition costs go down. Started to work. So that was an idea of differentiation.
It's a nice success story. It makes a lot of sense because otherwise you're just one more listing and there's zero differentiation. You're a pure commodity, then you're competing on price and on specs. And this one has 8 gig of RAM, this one has 16, this one has 32, this one, So yeah. It's a great example. Okay. Have you come across additional cases like this? This one's a very good one, of course.
Well, I mean, it applies to every single kind of company. And so one of the things that we do with all of our clients, whether they're in an e-commerce environment or whether they're in a service business or a retail environment, whatever, it's like, who's the core customer? And it's like very specific. People talk about buyer personas and whatever, but like, who is that specific human being? And let's make everything about, there's one thing that people often forget. So there's a principle that we see. It's look at me marketing, which is essentially what 99% of companies do. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is why it's great. Features and benefit company. It's the default because we don't know who we're trying to go after. If you don't know who you're trying to go after, you don't know the core problems of those people. And there's this thing that we all have to recognize is that no one cares about us. They only care about 2 things: solving their problems and accomplishing their goals. That's it. When it comes to consumer purchase, they care about 2 things: solving their problems, accomplishing their goals. They don't care about how long you've been in business. They don't care how tenured your staff is. They don't care about any of that stuff. Now, those things might help build trust. There's a spot for them. But at the beginning of the whole experience, people need to know that you're going to help them solve their problems and accomplish their goal. So what happens is you need to identify core customers like you. Okay, you're going after Magento companies, medium size. They've got budget. They understand that they need help. They're not able to do it themselves. And so you've horizontally positioned yourself, saying that we're a Magento solution. Doesn't matter what business you're in. We can do horizontal Magento. We can help. Doesn't matter what business you're in. So you're niching, and you know the problems of Magento users. They want to make changes and they can't. They had somebody in house and then they left, and now they're hooped. They're making they got a whole bunch of new products, and now they're out. Their database is out of date. Blah 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 blah. So what you've done with your agency with a horizontal position is really really smart, because now it's easy for us to address the core customer, and then make all the content around the problems that they experience and the solution state that your clients get to experience after working. And the thing is, when someone reads about their own problems, they think they get me. And when someone thinks they get me, you build trust. And people buy from people they like, know, and trust. This starts with trust. And so whether someone's horizontally positioning or the opposite, which is vertically positioning, we need to figure out what the position is and who the target audience is, and then start to figure out what their problems are and speak to them. That's all that matters.
Fully agreed. Yeah.
And the thing is, I said this a lot. I'm not like ambivalent, like this isn't out of the goodness of my heart that I'm trying to get people to figure this stuff out. I'm selfishly oriented to my client's success. So I need them to understand the value of strategy so that I can go do a good job. So I'll keep them and they keep giving me money for a really long time. And I can get my kids and schools and whatever they need in their future. Like, this is not about the goodness of doing business. This is about, selfish orientation. And so I think it's just kind of fun though. It's like, I've done this for 15 years. Our company has done this for 15 years. We got a whole bunch of people. You don't need to do this. As a listener, you don't have to do this. But if you work with us, we're going to help you figure this stuff out because we want to keep you forever. And so it's a neat relationship that like these things, the only reason we're trying to get people to go this direction is to make our job easy, make it so we can help them make more money and have more stuff. It works.
Yeah, otherwise they'll cut the advertising contract with you if it doesn't bring in customers in a profitable way.
Exactly. You know? Which is like, and it's so much easier to fire an agency when it is a staff member, right? Like there's no loyalty. So it's like, it's all about making the results happen and also supplying care.
Yeah. And now with digital advertising, you can have up to full traceability. We'll see how that changes with the cookie-less world that we're diving into now for the user privacy and tracking. But before that, in the classic paper media advertising, you had a famous quote from some billionaire say, "I know that 50% of my advertising worked, but I don't know which 50%." So
Wanamaker.
Yeah, so now we don't have that problem anymore. You have full database tracking of everything. You can prove if you're a good agency is this profitable or not, and understand the need for you. Totally. Okay. And is there more that comes to mind about like strategy, positioning, and differentiation?
Yeah, so I mean, like the idea. So there's a whole bunch of folks on this. Ern Harnish speaks about it quite a bit through scaling up.
I'm a big fan. Read it twice, that book.
So good. He talks about 4 barriers of growth, execution, cash, people, and strategy. And when he interviews entrepreneurs in group settings, everybody picks strategy last. The thing is, people haven't thought about strategy enough. And a lot of people think that strategic planning is strategy. So things like setting a vision, setting core values, setting a purpose, like that's strategy, but it's not. That's strategic planning. They're different. Strategy is about how you're going to position your firm to be in a marketplace. How are you going to maintain margin or increase price? How can you make it so that you're the only choice as opposed to a choice? And so I think the thing that I want to share with entrepreneurs of any kind of company is to spend at least an hour a week with the owners and senior leadership discussing, researching, learning about strategy. Because once strategy is identified, sales is easier, execution's easier because you start to understand how to do the same thing better and better and better instead of trying to do something new every single day. Cash is easier to manage because you're making more of it. It's easy to recruit people because staff are having more fun. Like strategy unlocks the other barriers. And I just got hit over the head with that maybe 2 years ago. And COVID really helped get us into a couple of programs that really made a lot more pronounced. So I think that's just a huge thing. And then there's a couple of resources. In scaling up, Vern talks about this book called Inside Advantage, which I highly recommend taking a read on. It talks about core customer in one of the first steps, the 4 barriers of scaling, 4 steps to like crazy growth. And then there's a Kaihan Kripanov is also amazing. Outthink the competition. So
I read that one too.
He's next, he's next level when it comes to facilitating a group and a brainstorming facilitation around how to ideate on strategy.
Yeah, which is great because you can be working super hard, but are you working on the right thing? That's basically the question with the strategy.
$1 million question. Yeah.
So if you change a strategy, you can totally change where this thing is going. So it's a big topic, and there's sometimes even confusion on basic terminology like strategy versus tactics. Strategy being the overarching principle of how you'll achieve victory, and tactics being hands-on, the tactical detail. You hold it this way, you do it that way, you click here, and that's going to give you a better result to achieve the strategy and to achieve the objective that the strategy wants to reach. Anything else you'd like to cover about strategy?
No, I think the kicker is if you're not able to write about the problems about your core customer, it's because you don't know who your core customer is, and there's a difference between who you go after and who you work with. So, for example, what I mean by that is like Intrigue is niched around home improvement and construction industry. We go after business types like landscapers. We were in Louisville, Kentucky last week at the National Association for Landscape Professional Conference. I'm speaking there. Those are the types of clients we're going after. But then I had an e-commerce, essentially like senior accessibility manufacturer inquire, somebody I know, asking for help. yes, we're going to help them. We understand how to apply the same principles that we do for their clients onto their business. And so sometimes people get tripped up when they're trying to niche, that they're going to get too narrow, going to miss out on all these dollars. But it's not like you don't have to stop working with everybody. It's just about it's focusing marketing, focusing your team, and starting to execute on something you know how to do really well. So who you work with isn't just restricted to who you go after. Sometimes people get tricked up.
Good point. Eventually you might want to restrict it, but that's depending on volume and difference of, the user's journey, sort of the customer's journey when they buy from you. Is it the same journey that's applicable, or because it's coming from a new source with different needs and so on, then it's going to create this whole additional channel that you have to optimize a customer's journey and plan step by step and ultimately automate some steps of the customer's journey. So
sure, and that could be tough, right? That could be a lot of work.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. You do your marketing for a specific niche target. Then if you say yes or no to some additional contract that you did not advertise for in that niche, that's a different question. And generally speaking, you'll say yes to those until you can really have enough volume, which is the core, because then you have a perfectly defined customer experience step by step, what happens at every step of the way. And then when you're ready, you add a second customer journey for a second niche or sub niche. And this way you can have a super streamlined business, which you won't have when you say yes to everybody who comes your way, even if you did not advertise. So that's just like the next level after to keep in mind.
You said it very well.
Yeah. So the other part here, we're saying if e-commerce is not part of your strategy, you might want to revisit that assumption, especially since COVID hit. What do you think about that?
I honestly just believe that there's room for every business to incorporate e-commerce. Whether it's even just paying an invoice using an online payment portal. It's just simple, making it easier to collect cash. So again, referring to scaling up, and a huge shout out to Sean Joel Hall for introducing us. He's also a scaling up coach. The cash conversion cycles, CCC. How long does it take you to get money from when someone's like open an opportunity or close an opportunity to having their invoice paid? E-commerce is great because a lot of times those people are going to pay up front before you have to do anything and deliver or dropship, whatever. Maybe if you're working with larger accounts, they're going to do it on terms. So it's like giving them an opportunity to pay you faster. If you're in, name one business that isn't an opportunity for e-commerce. You look behind me, there's a cabinet, so custom cabinets, seemingly not traditional e-commerce model. Someone says that they want to do a custom design. Cool. Here's $100, hold your spot to pay for your design, payment online. Makes it so that they're more committed. You've got money before you start. Okay, your cabinets are done. Okay, great. They'll be delivered, in 6 months or maybe 12 months because the supply chain's so messed up. Okay, we need a deposit here. Pay online right now. It's $1,000. We'll order your stuff. There's so many ways for us to consider how to leverage e-commerce to make it so that we can at very least get paid faster.
Yeah.
Even for us go ahead.
No, well, that's it. To streamline the customer's journey again, to streamline the experience from start to finish, as we were talking with before. You can use the e-commerce website or even just a payment portal, and that's part of the steps, and automate some steps in between with an email so that you don't rewrite the same email over and over again in your business, especially service business. And then the next step is just triggered and triggered and triggered. This is a bit different from, let's say, an add to cart kind of business model that you have a traditional cart like Magento, Shopify, or others, a bit like an Amazon experience. But you can still do that also for cabinets. You could have a few pre-made models, and then you click the options on the add to cart, and it's going to change a picture with the correct option the customer has selected, and you give a deposit. And even if you have a technical hurdle along the way, sometimes we see this, let's say, with big items shipment. They need freight shipment or LTL or FTL shipment, less than truckload or full truckload shipment. And it's complicated. And then they have to call shipping companies and get a quote within 24 hours. And this prevents a live checkout in many cases. So something like that, you could still have just a simple workaround and tell your customer, especially in the early step, to say, well, shipping fees not included. We'll contact you for shipping. If you disagree with shipping quote, you can just cancel the order. No penalty, but you tell them to complete the checkout process, even though they don't have the freight quote yet. So then you can still have an order placed with some down payment possibly for it. So that's one example. Then when you get to a further level, eventually you automate your shipping quote even for freight, like if it was a small parcel like UPS or FedEx, but that is more complicated.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And the cool thing is a lot of people will say something like, oh, no one would ever do that. And it's like, well, you will, it's like, you'll never know unless you try. So setting it up and then, oh my God, look at that, someone does it. You know, like I had a client of ours say that no one will ever buy a $6,000 couch online. Like, well, if we don't put it online, they won't. Well, why don't we give it a shot? And then, oh my God, look what happened. Someone bought a $6,000 couch.
Yeah, this is a good mind blocker like that. You hear it a lot. It's just a mindset change that's needed here. It's mentally blocked. The same thing was said for shoes. Who's going to buy shoes online? I mean, you got to try them on, and then you have that $1 billion Apple company, So I'm not one of their customers. I do want to go at the store, even though I'm an e-commerce specialist. I do want to go to the store, try my shoes. That's for me specifically, but there's still plenty of people who buy their shoes online. People will buy the couch online without trying it, without touching it or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can sell almost anything online, or you can generate the first step of the call with the conversation with the specialist by showcasing the products online, and then maybe you have a consultation with the specialist to close the sale over the phone.
Yeah. Love that. And yeah, you never know until you try. That's just the way it goes.
Fully agree. Okay. And let's say we could move, I guess, to the topic of, unless you had something more about the e-commerce being part of the strategy.
I know. Anybody who's listening, if you were to just sit, anywhere between 4 and 8 people down in a Zoom setting or in a whiteboard session, whatever, and just ask, everybody in the individual session to list 5 ways that you can leverage e-commerce, new ways to leverage e-commerce in your business. You can get anywhere between 20 and 40 ideas. And then, there's a different couple ways you can go through evaluating those ideas, but it's easy to brainstorm. It's just, you got to make sure that people stop saying that'll never work, because the progress doesn't happen with that type of thing.
Yeah, it's the wrong mindset. I'm sure just getting online is the first step if the business is there, and then there's all the level of sophistication in the pyramid, so to speak, that first just get an online store, get your product listed with pictures, descriptions, and prices. That's the foundation, and then you get more and more sophisticated in your marketing, SMS marketing with the abandoned cart, email reminders. You can get even further away if you have a very large catalog with the artificial intelligence for product recommendation, just like Amazon does. It's now available for small and medium businesses. Magento Commerce does it. Maybe some other platforms do as well. So then you can get super sophisticated if you want to, but just getting online is interesting. And the price of advertising just keeps going up. So it's a bit like the housing market, especially in North America. I mean, just get in the game, because it keeps going up. Okay, the table stakes keeps going up. It's better to start this year than next year. Same thing for advertising costs. Like in Canada, we can see people say, "Oh, it's expensive for this keyword." But if you have access to the data, there were some studies published that most of the time the Canadian price for pay-per-click ads with Google was like 3 years behind the U.S. prices, and you could see the trend and say, "Well, in 3 years is more or less what's going to be." Just look at the U.S. market; they're 3 years ahead. So. That's you need to think about. It's like, no, I know it's expensive, but if you can make the math work for customer cost acquisition, it's a good time to go online. Yeah. So first, with the pandemic right now, there's a lot of talk. At least, a lot of places, Canadian media talks a lot about this. We're finding good talent's a bit of a problem right now. You have the supply chain problem with the ship stuck everywhere at the port with COVID. But you have also the talent problem. There's a clear shortage of labor force here, at least in Canada. They talk a lot about it. I guess probably more or less the same in the States. What do you have in mind about, finding good talent?
Yeah, that's cool. There's a lot to it. So first of all, there's a lot of good people out there. They're just not willing to settle for garbage employers anymore. And we're up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs now, where if I don't like my job, I can quit and live in my parents' house. You can have a 30-year-old person for the first time, essentially since work in like the Industrial Revolution, who can just say, "I'm good. I'm going to go chill at my parents till I find something that I like." So instead of having like a physiological motivation to have and a safety motivation to have food, shelter, food in their bellies and shelter over their head, they're into social and esteem motivations. And social and esteem motivations come from great cultures, come from organizations with meaningful purpose, come from organizations that have core values and live authentically by them, come from places that help individuals learn and grow. And so essentially shitty leadership is being penalized for not having authentic purpose, vision, and values identified. And then the other thing that we need to identify is, what is it that we're trying to help people do? Same thing. People care about accomplishing their goals and solving their problems. Like it's not about the paycheck anymore. And so we're not fully staffed right now, but we're probably doing better than the average bear. And we're pretty close to staff. What is it that we're trying to help people do with their career? So if you're going to take over this position and ladder up, so it's just this idea that what are we going to do for people's careers? How are we going to improve people's lives? What kind of people, and what stage of their life are they in that would be a good fit for the type of career development that we have available for us? One of the things that we've been doing recently, I'm not getting into the full tactic of it, but we're doing cold email outreach, not cold LinkedIn outreach. And the blurbs are very simple. It's like, hey, your LinkedIn profile caught my eye. I'd love to learn a bit more about what you want to accomplish with your career over the next 3 to 5 years. At Intrigue, our vision is to do this, which is empower 500 entrepreneurs a year, because entrepreneurs are the people that put their houses on the line to grow their business and hire families and sponsor the soccer teams in their communities. Our purpose is empowering leaders to strengthen communities. If you'd like to have a talk, let me know. You can book a 15-minute call here in my calendar. We'll send an email out of, 1,500 people based on their role title, and we'll end up booking 30 to 50 meetings. So the appetite is there. It's just not necessarily around, hey, we have a job that pays $55,000 a year with great benefits. You need to have these skill sets and 3 to 5 years experience with a driver's license. Like it's like that,
and a pulse, and you're fine. You're
right.
good to go.
That doesn't cut it anymore. People, I think, as leaders, we need to just step up and get a bit more authentic about what we're trying to do in the world, and then find people that want to do it with us.
And that technique of sending out that mass mailing, that's legit with the Canadian anti-spam law.
Yeah, well, the thing is, so there's two things that make it legit. One is it needs to be a publicly accessible email. So I have to be able to find it. I'm not buying it. I'm not sneaking it somehow. It's a publicly accessible email. And two, it has to be about their role in their business, whatever they are in their business. If I'm recruiting somebody, let's say a Facebook ad specialist or a PPC ad specialist, I can find their email address on their company website, and I can email them about their role. I mean, I've fallen asleep more than 10 times reading Castle legislation. It's legit. Castle was not
yeah,
Castle.
It's a hard read. It's so gray zone, so unclear on so many levels. It's unbelievable. When there's room for interpretation, I go risk oriented. I'll take the slap on the hand, or if someone says you can't do that, I say, okay, well, show me where I can't. They'll read the line, and I say, well, there's interpretation there, and we can go to court. But I don't think that'd be the case. But even when the thing is doing the outreach like we've done, people are stoked. A lot of people are like, hey, thanks for thinking of me, but I'm not interested right now. So no one's upset by it. We're just trying to show them an opportunity. Yeah, exactly. Sure. It's the job offer. So it's interesting. And do you do the same for also like potential client solicitation? You still send out emails that say to direct contact that's in link with their job because they're the chief marketing officer and you offer ad services?
Oh yeah. It's one of the core ways we're scaling right now. One of the biggest methods that we're using for new customers.
And that's legit also with Castle because you're sending to their specific job title, their chief marketing officer.
Yeah, I mean, we're going after entrepreneurs, but we're helping them grow they're finding their emails online. That's okay. Like everybody thinks that Castle was never designed to squash commerce. Castle was designed to stop spammers. So as long as we don't spam anybody, just like send them deals to buy, refurbished laptops.
Right.
Build a list of 50,000 and then send them, a list to buy laptops. As long as we're not trying to spam folks, you're fine.
Good to know. All right. Anything else that comes to mind about like finding good talent?
This stuff's probably all like. So, you ever heard of Jay Abraham?
I think so.
Okay, anyway, he's got this thing called the Parthenon approach. Now he talks about it with regard to sales and marketing. What we've done is we've essentially taken the fundamental principles for digital marketing, sales and marketing, conversion funnels, and we brought it over to we call the SMART method. So it's specifically called the strategic marketing approach to recruiting talent, SMART method. And so we essentially take the two funnels and we do the exact same thing. So one of the things is a lot of people don't have any. When people go to recruit, for the most part, it's all bottom of the funnel conversion. Apply now, buy now, apply now, buy now. Right? It's the same thing. Very few people have middle of the funnel or top of the funnel recruitment strategies or recruitment tactics. And so an example, what we do, and you can go to our site, you can register today if you want to check it out. We have a career information session. You can sign up for free for a Zoom session. It's at noon. I think it's on the third Thursday of the month. You can see on our careers page all the different opportunities that we have available. You can register for a career information session and learn what it's like to be a day in the life of an intriguer. And I host it or Paul hosts it. And we just answer questions and provide some clarity around our purpose, our vision, our values, what it's like to, work inside our virtual four walls these days or hybrid walls these days. That's a middle of the funnel content. They're thinking about looking at it, but they don't want to apply. And even if they don't show up to the event, they've registered and we got their email address. We also send out a career newsletter. So, we have a list of 5,000 past applicants over the last 10, 12 years. And we send out a career information newsletter saying this is the jobs that we have currently available. Here's a core value of the month. Here's where Gary, the Purple Cow, went to last week. Here's a bunch of people that got awesome citations. Oh, we're B Corp. We just got awarded best employer in the world, blah, blah, blah. We actually did just get awarded best in the world in B Corp.
In B Corp. And who gives that amazing award?
The B Corp.
The B Corp, really? Okay. Well, that sounds amazing. I'm not very familiar with B Corps. Okay.
So it's like People, Planet, Profit. So it's a legal corporate identity that makes it so that you're no longer legally obligated to only produce profit to shareholders.
Which sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. It's hard to ship it again.
Yeah, it doesn't. But that's a USA. That's a US filing, right?
So the B Corp is a US legal filing, but the B Corp enterprise organization is now global in nature.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. Well, that's pretty good coverage. It's some interesting techniques here that you have for recruitment, with that application on your website, the past newsletters, and so on.
Yeah. So my point, though, with Jay Abraham is that we do the Parthenon approach instead of the diving board approach. So a lot of people like LinkedIn and Indeed, online job funnels or whatever, online job posting. We're like, okay, well, how can we build email lists? How can we send email newsletters? What's the referral fee that you're willing to give a current team member if somebody comes on board, stays 90 days, 6 months, 12 months? Like we pay $3,000 if somebody lasts 12 months. If someone refers a team member. There's job fairs, internship programs, co-op programs, speaking at universities. And so, how can we identify 12 different ways to find talent and then run engines constantly? And so we have this philosophy of 24/7 recruitment. And so we always have room for an A player, always hiring for every position. And, as we build the funnel, one of our biggest things is that our email list is our biggest asset when it comes to recruitment. When I'm looking to fill a position, I want to be able to send directly to an inbox, not go through Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever, ZipRecruiter, the list goes on. Because those folks keep the applicant information inside their platform. Only once they get further down the line do you get access to their email address because they understand the value of the email address. And so what I want to do for myself and our clients is build a recruitment database just for us. and then think about it over a 5 to 7 year time frame, because everybody overestimates what they can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in a decade.
Yeah, Bill Gates.
What can we do in the next 7 to 10 years in terms of how big our email list can be? We start thinking that way, you can really start to outpace.
Very interesting. Yeah, I have not heard of many companies that, our size and your size that have this in place. It tends to be a technique that you'll see at very large companies like, okay, now we have a marketing department and we need to do marketing for recruitment and all that.
Right.
Thanks for sharing those tips. That's some gold nuggets there.
Thanks.
Anything else that you have in mind about finding good talent?
I don't know, be real. I think a lot of times core values just got to be real. A lot of people don't necessarily.
To hire, reward, and fire by them.
Yeah, and it's sometimes they're like altruistic and quality, integrity, trust, and they're just meaningless. Having them be more authentic is easier to live by. And the other thing is, like, a lot of people don't necessarily have a very strong vision of like what they want to accomplish, what's the dent in the universe they want to create. So it makes it difficult for someone to figure out if they want to help do it. Like when we talk about entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurs, because they're the ones that put their house on the line, hire families, grow economies locally, sponsor soccer teams. There's a bunch of folks that hear that stuff and they go, I want to help entrepreneurs too. And so the vision helps attract people that believe in that idea. Our purpose is empowering leaders to strengthen communities. We believe there's too many people waiting for someone else to do it. Who are they? They should do that. Like there's some other person out there that's going to fix our problems. We need more leaders. We need more involved in our communities. It's not about giving back. It's about getting involved. And so we believe in leadership, community, and helping and supporting entrepreneurs. You layer that stuff together and people start to get excited if they believe in that stuff. And other people go, I don't want anything to do with that. I just want to get paid and, buy a Cadillac when I'm 30 years old. Who cares? They're not going to be attracted to what we're trying to do. And so I think the more we can get real with the dent in the universe we want to create, the more we can find some folks that want to help.
Yeah, and then you have way better retention of that staff because their value and their personal desires and drive is aligned with what you're offering.
Yeah, which is a really cool note that you just layered on top of that, is that I really believe there is I in team. Teams are made up of individuals. And so I think we have to go away of the dodo bird of like, you need to park your individual goals and desires so that we can be a team that goes accomplish this. No, we got to embrace your individual desires and make sure they line up with what we're trying to do. Because if they don't, it's going to go sideways anyway. I don't know if you've ever heard of Coach K.
No.
He was he's NCAA, one of the winningest coaches in history, and he was tasked to coach the U.S. Olympic basketball, and they had like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and just all the biggest names. And one of the guys said when they were getting there, one of these coaches was like, "Hey, you have to park your egos at the door." Coach K was like, "No. Bring your egos. Bring you. We recruited you. Like, bring it all in. And let's figure out how to make it all work together because we all want to accomplish the same thing, which is a goal. So let's just be realistic in who we are and then make sure we can line up the individual goals that we're trying to recruit. That's all."
Yeah, in his case, he knows he's, working with big egos and he's trying to leverage that,
Yeah.
But then you have other sportsmen, like let's say a guy like Wayne Gretzky that doesn't have a publicly facing at least a very large ego like this, but has a crazy dream. So he will be dreaming incredibly hard and to achieve like world-class, the greatest thing ever, which is to some degree, I guess, ego-driven as well. But then there's no ego in the room. So to me, that is an even higher level of sportsman.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're Canadian, so yeah, go Gretzky.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So we're coming on the top of the hour. Anything else you'd like to cover before we conclude?
Oh, yeah. I just think this is awesome that you're doing this to help people out, serving the community. We're trying to figure out e-commerce. So thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you, Robert. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
You can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can just look at Robert Murray. I should be at the top of the list for that. Or if you want to email me direct, it's robert@Intrigueme.ca. You can Google our website or you can Google our company, Intrigue Media. If you want get in touch, that's probably the best way. Instagram, same thing. Robert Murray, you'll find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today, Robert.
Okay, cheers, Guillaume. Thanks so much.